Another dud is what they said. Nikki Haley, former U.S. ambassador to the UN, Republican presidential candidate. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Why don't you go ahead and weigh in? What do you think about what we've learned so far?
It's our top law enforcement agency that didn't follow the laws. We now see that it was politically motivated. I mean, that's something that happens in a third world country. That doesn't happen in America. I fought those things at the United Nations. I mean, to see what happened is unthinkable. Heads need to roll over this. Anybody that touched it or had a part in it needs to be fired, and every one of their senior managers needs to be fired. The FBI has lost complete credibility when it comes to this, and they've got a lot of fixing to do to get the trust back of the American people.
It'd be interesting to see if Democrats decide to just ignore this report, as some they are, or they are dismissing it, pretending that it will go away. Let's go back a little bit, even to 2015, 2016, when all of this started. There was President Obama in charge at the White House. There was Hillary Clinton, who had just been Secretary of State. Do you think they deserve any responsibility here or accountability? Should they speak out about this?
This happened during the campaign. I think Joe Biden needs to speak out about it. I think Hillary Clinton does. I think Obama does. Go back to the part that I realized is go back to how many files had Americans that were declassified in that. That's what I remember. Like, I go back and look at the United Nations and the ambassador before me, like they declassified all of these things on Americans that shouldn't have been done. What were they looking at? What were they trying to find? Who all was involved in this? And Democrats need to answer for this, too, because this is not about Republicans or Democrats. This shouldn't happen to any American as we go forward. And when I was at the United Nations, you felt this probe. Every day and everything we did on this Russian collusion, we all felt it. And now we look and we see all of that. It seems, though,
Governor, they use the FBI and they use the media to carry their message, right? I'm reading from the Wall Street Journal today. The FBI provided briefings to the Clinton campaign and did not, because they had lack of such briefings, provided the Trump campaign. When you brief the Clinton campaign, they're going to their folks in the media, correct?
Yep.
Right, and they continue to talk.
Right.
You see the takeaways in the Politico.com this morning. The lack of curiosity is stunning. The Washington Post won a Pulitzer for their reporting on the Russian investigation 5 years ago. BuzzFeed broke the dossier story. They're out of business. CNN followed hours after. Remember the night in January? Last Friday night, they had 300,000 viewers in prime time. The point is that they were working together on this, if you read this report carefully.
They spied on Americans. They spied on Americans and had no reason to do it, and they got away with it. And we have to hold people accountable. Biden needs to answer for this. Democrat leadership needs to answer for this. Republicans and Democrats need to come together and say, what are you going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? Heads need to roll for this.
I want you to listen to Kim Strassel. She was on Special Report last night about media. Shouldn't they be mad at the sources who led them down this path? Watch.
Where are all the reporters who are actually out there angry, saying something out loud about the people who were in the FBI, who lied to them, who misled them, who, I mean, normally that's the sort of thing reporters get furious about. They denounce.
You would wonder if they would trust those sources again. But then again, you get to the Hunter Biden laptop and they trust similar sources on the security front with 51 security folks. But on Republicans and former President Trump, given that he has called this the crime of the century, and I'm sure if you're sitting in his seat, it definitely feels like that. Or if you're part of his family or you work for him and you had to get a lawyer and you had to do all of these things and went through years to find out that there was no there from the beginning. Does he deserve a chance to do it again for a do-over?
Well, I think, first of all, he never got a moment's peace. None of us did. We all felt that Russia probe in every bit of our jobs, but he felt it the most. And I think, that is something that needs to be held accountable. I don't just think it's those that tipped off reporters that did it. I think the media needs to be held accountable for not asking more questions and not getting down to what needed to happen. Having said that, now is the time that we have to look at the future. We can't look at the past. When I do all these town halls in New Hampshire, Iowa, and South Carolina, they want to talk about crime. They want to talk about illegal immigration. They want to talk about the debt and the spending. They want to talk about transparency in their kids' schools. They want to move forward. I think people need to be held accountable. We need to make sure heads roll over this at the most senior level.
Think people are going to be fired from this?
They have to be fired for this.
There's only been one prosecution, and that person served 0 jail time.
Congress has a job to do, and that is to make sure people were fired and every senior manager over those people get fired. If not, what makes us any different than South Sudan or Democratic Republic of Congo? This kind of corruption happens in those third world countries. It should never happen in America.
Trust in institutions is something that the Democrats lament, and I think Republicans do too, right? Like the trust in institutions, it's way down. This is one of the reasons why. And what I didn't hear in any of those clips we had from the media earlier was a recognition that there are good reasons for people to be suspicious of the government. As unfortunate as that is, they now have even more evidence to feel that way. And what do you hear on the campaign trail about that?
Well, I think you hear Americans, and there is a deep state concern. This is only going to create more distrust of our federal agencies. It's why we really need to have more transparency, more accountability. If nothing happens because of this, it's just going to happen again. And Democrats should worry about that just as much as Republicans.
Governor, you're going back to Iowa. We'll follow you along the trail.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here in New York.
Thanks so much.
Nice to see you.
Speaking of New York City, it is struggling.